ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of How Did We Get Here? I'm your host, Jay Carter, and the man that is always heard and never seen, Skeens. He's here, but he's not here. But again, better than your average is the channel and the movement. How Did We Get Here is the show. We got two cousins that are like brothers that are talking any and everything and the process. How did we get here? Got another dope interview, man. I was just getting ready to catch up with my mans, y'all, and I know y'all gonna be like, Jay, you got so many people that I'm telling you, man, this military life has just, one of the blessings that it's afforded me is build relationships, but long-standing relationships. And I got my man, this was my best friend in the whole wide world. We want to
my most bestest good friend.
So that voice that you hear, y'all, is none other than my man, Dana Harris. Welcome to the show, brother. Welcome to the show.
Man, I'm so happy to be on here, man, and it's just amazing, man, what you're doing. And I like what you touched on about that military life, man. So, yeah. Hey, I'm gonna let you lead it off, man. I'm looking forward to this one, brother.
Man, so y'all, we were just catching up, cause Dana and I, y'all, have not actually seen each other, shook hands since like '93.
Yeah,
something like that. You know what I mean? When we left and went to Germany. And, of course, by way of once I came back stateside and grew up and got grown, and I was sitting and I would think about this dude all the time, because we were, that go to each other's house, stay the night over there. Both of our moms was singing in the choir and all this stuff. And one of my favorite but most horrible stories, as tight as me and Dana were, one of the first people in the neighborhood to steal my bike was his older brother, Jason.
Man, listen, that right there is so funny because I don't even know when he, like when he discovered. I don't know how that happened because I do remember him. First of all, Jason was a menace at the time. But I do clearly remember Jason used to use me as a lookout sometimes. Him and his crook friend. I remember in the cul-de-sac that y'all stayed in.
Yep.
I remember when they hit the house that was right there next to the path coming from the park.
Yes.
And I was the lookout. But I never thought that, like, it was always evident, like, yo, already know that's my man over there. So, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I look out for this one right here while you getting them.
Right.
But it never even crossed my mind. But, yeah, man, that Jason, oh, man, so I'm glad he's doing much better.
Dude, and again, the crazy thing about life, now Jason is this, this dude is flying planes and giving speeches, and he's got. I'm like, who is this? Dana, my mom hit me. Sweet Pea, did you see Jason on Facebook? I know, I seen him. Who is that? Who is that?
Yeah, man.
I mean, like Dana said, Jason, I would stay the night when y'all moved to Killeen, and y'all stayed right over by the school, and I remember Jason used to torment us, man. He'd be like, yeah, Jay, you can stay the night, but this and that going to happen to you, and this, that, and the third. I'd be like, oh, my God, man, this dude. But Dana, we was best friends. It was like you were saying, like second grade. You know what I'm saying?
Second grade, man.
Second grade.
I still remember you were probably the first person that had a child. Like, I'd never seen childs.
Right.
And I remember you had those dogs, and so when I started learning about how tough those dogs were, I was like, nah, y'all can't be talking about a child, because my man got one, and it's like, this dog cool, like, we don't have no problem.
Now, this is one thing I'll say, man. Oh, and I always start off with this, Dana, and we'll get into everything in just a second, but if you had to title the story of your life, what would it be?
Ooh, man, you come out swinging.
I try, man.
if I had to title the story of my life, what would it be? I would identify yourself. Identify yourself.
Identify yourself. Okay.
Identify yourself. Man.
Okay. Okay.
And it's ironic because I got a story behind that, but identify yourself would be the title of my story.
Okay. So again, what I always like to do too, man, is tell cats, what I appreciated about them. And this dude Dana, y'all, and we're gonna get into his story, but just to let you know where we're going, this brother, was doing wonderful things in the area of mathematics and teaching and tutoring kids. And, we want to get into that whole thing, of course, and promote your platform and everything, Dana. But this dude, even in second and third grade, he was always a cat that pivoted the line of being culturally aware as far as fashion and dressing and music. But you were always on top of them books, though, boy. I was like, this dude is, because I was like, this dude is the smartest friend I have. You know what I'm saying? So I always looked up to you, man, as far as, like you say, your fashion sense. You was on top of your grades was good. And then I remember you used to draw little pictures of cats with, like, Nike outfits on, and you would draw the Nike shoes on them. Dana, I remember that, baby. I remember that, man.
Wow. Hey, now you taking me back, man. And it's amazing. I think that's a beautiful part of this conversation because I had what you just reminded me of. So first of all, the fashion came from stealing Jason clothes a lot of times. Yeah. Grandma too. Okay. Grandma used to spend some money at that PX, man.
Okay.
And it was my grandma. Her motto was always this: "I serve a rich God."
Okay.
And ironically, my grandfather, he didn't go to church much, but he always would make sure that we got dropped off at church when we started going to a church that was away from the neighborhood.
Okay.
But my grandfather used to call my grandmother Miss Richby, right?
Okay.
And so it was hilarious, but I would steal Jason's shoes when he left the house and wear them to school. And remember, we was getting out of school earlier than they were at Smith, so it was like I got to get home. Me and you walked to the crib, and we had time to like fool around and get into whatever.
Yep.
Get home, I could put his shoes back in place, and he never knew it. And as far as the book smarts, my grandfather, so the mathematics piece, bro, it didn't hit me until I was pretty much in high school how my grandfather laid the foundation that I had in mathematics, man.
Okay.
My grandfather is the sole reason that school was so important to me because he drilled that into us, man. He was big on penmanship. He was big. I remember my grandfather used to show off to his homies. He'd be like, "Man, you gotta see my grandson. He writes so well and this and that."
Okay.
And Dana, just write something on a piece of paper. And so my grandfather, he is the reason that school meant so much to me when I was young. And I will say my fashion sense was a collection of grandma spending big money and being able to take clothes from Jason.
Yeah, and even because, again, just the dynamic of your family, just shout out to Jason, shout out Jamie. Jamie was like from another world to me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. His hair, that dude was the first black dude I knew that was skateboarding and stuff like that. I was like, what is going on? Who is his brothers? You know what I'm saying? So I used to love coming to your house, man, because again, I was the only child over at my house during that time. You know what I mean? And your mom, Miss Cherie, I mean, just another woman that would take me in and treat me like her own, man. You know what I'm saying? Just a sweet, beautiful lady, man. Now what I want to do, Dana, is go all the way back because I want to talk some about your family dynamic because it ended up being how many of y'all all together?
6.
So it was Jamie is the oldest.
Yep.
Then it was Jason, you. Then came your younger brother after you. Jesus Christ.
Daniel was 7 years younger than me.
Yeah. Then Daniel came. I remember that dude when he was a little baby. I mean, he was off the chain, man. But
yes, he was. Yes, he was.
And then
and then there was JJ.
That's right. Yeah, he was an infant.
My mom, I don't know why she didn't stop, but she finally had a girl. Chi was number 6 at the bottom.
And when I saw pictures of her, Dana, because she was so much younger, I was like, is that one of her granddaughters? But that's your sister.
That's my sister. Yep.
I thought.
So Chi lives with me now, right?
Oh, okay.
Chi is 27, and she's a nurse.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's crazy. It's like, wow, the baby. Yeah, man.
Wow.
It ended up being 6.
Okay, so it was 6 altogether. Now, before y'all came, because a lot of your family, y'all came from Cali, right?
Yep.
So how did your mom? I know she was in the military. That's how she ended up in Fort Hood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's how she ended up there. Now, when I think by the time that I met y'all, she was already out. I can't ever remember seeing your mom in no BDUs or nothing.
She was still in. But I and it's ironic that you bring that up because me and Jason was debating with Mom last night, just last night.
Yeah.
That like when she got out, and we thought she got out when we still lived on base.
Yeah.
I mean, not on base. I don't. The debate was that she was already out when we moved to Killeen, and she was like, "No, I wasn't out yet."
Oh, really?
So yeah, we ended up got kicked off base because of Jason.
Is that why y'all left?
Yes, that's nobody really knew it. We got kicked off base because of Jason, man, getting in trouble.
Wow.
And what was crazy was his right hand man that was getting into foolishness with him, his white friend, but his white friend wasn't getting in as much trouble because his pops was CID.
Wow.
So, yep.
Wow, because when y'all moved
so my
to
mom stayed in a
Killeen,
couple more years.
when y'all moved to Killeen, Dana, I thought my world, I was like, no, no. But I still used to be at your house all the time. So, I mean, it was cool. My mom still let me come out there, and then, so I want to know, and of course, again, y'all, this is another connection by way of Christian House of Prayer. That's how we meshed in together. Dana was a music head. Again, our moms both was singing all the time, so we was big on music. We both love commissioned and Fred Hammond and all that kind of stuff. And when we left, it was like midway through my 5th grade year is when I left. So after that, tell me what happened. How much longer did you stay in Killeen? When did you leave? I don't know any of that.
Great question too. So we ended up we stayed in Killeen 4th grade, and then we moved to Cove 5th and 6th grade.
Okay.
And actually no, I was in Cove 5th, 6th because I went to Ledger, Ledger.
Yep.
That was the intermediate school with 5th and 6th grade, and then I went to Cove Junior High 7th grade. He left the summer after my mom. By this time, my mom had been out for a few years, and so her and my stepdad were still married at the time. He did a few more years after her, but then he got out when we were in Cove.
Okay.
And so we ended up leaving there and moving back to North Carolina. So we ended up in North Carolina because my grandparents were actually from North Carolina. But my grandfather retired at Oakland Army Base. So once again, you mentioned the military, and so for us it was generations, man. All of my grandfather's brothers served in the military in some capacity.
Okay.
Even my uncles,
Mm-hmm.
my grandparents had 6 kids,
Mm-hmm.
and out of the 6, the first 4 served. My mama and her, 3 brothers, but only her 2 youngest brothers didn't serve.
Oh, okay.
So we got to North Carolina. I finished school in North Carolina, and that's where we ended up at, man. Which was man. Leaving Texas was traumatic for me because when you left, like you say, I was like, man, my world is turned upside down.
Right.
Like, that's my right hand man. And we were all close to Christian House of Prayer was a family atmosphere.
Yeah, man.
We were close to a lot of different people. One of the greatest things that I like about what they built there was that basketball league, man.
Man, you remember prayers and players, baby.
Bro, man, and it was like this was I'm trying to think. Even then, everybody got a trophy.
Yeah.
But there was still some significance between the teams that were the top 3 teams.
Yeah, it was.
You had the first, second, and third place trophies, but then there was a distinguishment, if that's even a word, from the participation trophies, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, we ended up leaving. We left Cole and went to North Carolina, and I stayed in Carolina for from 95 until I left and went back to California 2017.
Okay.
And ironically, I just moved back to Charlotte 2020.
Okay. So now let me ask you, because as kids I can't remember this. Now I remember vividly your stepfather, and I remember when your mom and I feel like when they got married and then had the baby, and I can remember your mom. Again, it's funny stuff that you remember, y'all. Miss Cherie was the first woman I knew that was like breastfeeding. She'd always have to, wherever we were at, she would throw that thing over herself. I remember we were in the hospital. I used to hang out with y'all so much. I remember one time we had to go to the hospital for something, and we was like in the ER forever. I don't remember why we was there. But what was your dynamic, or what was your relationship with your dad? You know, I never remember us even talk. Of course, we were so young. I wouldn't talk to you about your pops and that like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. That's the real deal. So we never had those conversations, right?
Yeah, of course.
I never met my biological father.
Word?
And this was the amazing thing about you growing up in the house with your father and being named after your father, right?
Wow.
I thought it was an amazing thing, because this is the crazy part about it, bro. At that time when we stayed on base, the only reason I found out that I didn't know my biological father was because my mother had photo albums from my grandfather loved photos. Right. So mom had photo albums, and I used to look at her photo albums around the time that we met, man. And there was this one photo album from when she was over in Korea, and it had these pictures of this guy, and about 3 or 4 pictures of my mom and this guy, and I could see it vividly, man. It looked like they were in a club. Probably looking back at it, it probably was a dining out, right?
Okay.
And one day, mom was cooking, and I don't know if you remember, in the kitchen, over the stove, there was the small little square opening. There was almost like a window to where you could look over into the den. Yep. So one day I say, Mom, who is this? And she says, that's your father. Wow. And then there was this awkward silence. Now I'm in the 2nd grade. There's this awkward silence, and she never mentioned him again until when we moved to North Carolina. It was the summer between 8th and 9th grade, and my grandmother came to visit us, and we were driving to Goldsboro, North Carolina, to Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, and my grandmother was in the car and asked about my father. Wow. So yeah, I never met him. When my grandmother came and asked about him that summer, that's actually when I found out that he was deceased. Oh, okay. So that was the story, man. That was the story.
So coming up, did Did that have any impact on you, negatively, positively? How did you feel about as far as even dealing with your stepdad?
Major impact. So number one, Jason. You remember how Jason was, and Jason's going to definitely have to listen to this conversation too, because I know he'll get a kick out of it.
Right.
So Jason used to, when he was teasing me, he was the first person that told me that their father wasn't my father. All I knew was me and my two big brothers had the same last name.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, that is my dad. But it didn't dawn on me when their father came to pick them up. I was never able to go.
You never went.
I didn't think nothing of it because it was almost just like, oh, you too small, we're going to be doing big
right,
stuff.
right,
You know
okay. Yeah.
And then, fast forward, as my stepdad, we had a interesting relationship. Mm-hmm. It had its ups and downs. It was cool early on. I remember when he took me and Jamie and Jason out one day, mm-hmm. In Killeen to get ice cream, mm-hmm. and he says, hey, I want to marry y'all mom. What do y'all think? Mm-hmm. And me being the youngest at the time, I'm like, yeah, sure, it's all good. Mm-hmm. And Jason was mugging like, and Jamie simply was like, no,
right?
Like, okay. Nah, you can't marry my mom.
Yeah.
So fast forward, things were okay with us. Mm-hmm. But things changed when we left and went to North Carolina because that year was good because he was a volunteer coach. Because my mom, when we first left, my mom stayed back in Killeen. She was working at Sally Mae still.
Oh, okay.
That everybody, they got out the military.
Yep.
And everybody went to CHOP, got out the Army.
Yep.
And went and worked at Sally Mae.
Yep, that's true.
So he was a volunteer coach for the football team when I was in 8th grade, and that's when the dynamics changed. So by the time 10th grade came, or really 9th grade, 10th grade, man. Because when I got to Carolina, I was the big dog. I had to look out for the 3 younger siblings.
Got it.
This was the first time ever I didn't have my 2 bodyguards with me.
Got it. Okay.
And so it worked out well for me because that's when I really had to learn how to build authentic relationships. Man. And we had an up and down relationship, mm-hmm. But overall, it wasn't bad. It mm-hmm. just was. I was becoming a young man, and I was observing things from a different scope, mm-hmm. and I saw things from a different light that I didn't like. And then now, by this time, you got to also think, I knew he wasn't my father,
right? But
now there's this. So back to the effect that you asked about.
Yeah,
I remember between 8th and 9th grade when I found out my biological father was dead. Mm-hmm. I sat and I felt like I was supposed to cry. And I couldn't cry. Mm-hmm. I tried to force tears out my face. But probably a little while down the line, it hit me one night. And I vowed to myself, man, that I would never father children and not be in their life. So eventually, James and my mother divorced mm-hmm. when I was, I think it was when I was a freshman in college.
Okay.
And even that, that's when it was, because by the time I was 16, I was like, look, I gotta continue to do well in school. I'm gonna play every sport that I can so I can stay out the house as much as I can. But I'm gonna help raise my younger siblings. I'm gonna do everything that I can for them. But I'm determined if I gotta go into the military or whatever, I gotta get out of here when I'm 18. The best thing that I could do to help my mom is to be self-sufficient. Mm-hmm. But when I was a freshman, he gave me the call. They had moved up to Chicago, his hometown, and he said, me and your mom are separating. And I was like, whoa. So that's the, what's up, son? Okay, cool. Okay. Authentic conversations up here.
Of course.
Fatherhood.
Of course. It happens in real life.
But yeah, that was the story, man.
Okay. Now, so you go into college, you had done well in school the entire time, and I want to go back to it, but before I forget, man, one key thing that you said, and I want to piggyback off what Dana said, guys, and Skeens and I always talk about it, is the importance, even Me and TJ Void did an interview, and his whole
I gotta
story.
listen to
Bruh, we gotta do a part 2 because I couldn't even get into everything with TJ. But he was just talking about, and we always talk about relationships, man, and that's really what all of this stuff that we doing is about. It's building relationships. You know what I'm saying? So it's just crazy that we have this same like-mindedness. But when you started going to school, what was your intentions when you were going? Did you know that you were gonna was your intention to be in education, or did that kind of come later? How did that come about?
Man, people would ask. I tell people I got conned into being a math major, number one. I knew that I liked math, and in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm a major in something dealing with math. The only degree I could think about was accounting.
Okay.
So to save time, I ended up being conned into being a math major.
Okay.
And when I became a math major, the setup that we had at Fayetteville State was so dope, man. Actually, Fayetteville State was in the top 3, top 5. We were in one of the top schools in the nation as far as producing undergrad and graduate math and computer science majors in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And so people would ask me, "Oh, you're a math major?" I'm like, "Yeah." So you're real smart, huh? I'm like, I mean, I guess it's two things. I just like math.
Right.
And so are you going to be a teacher? And I would say, hell no, they don't make enough money. Those were my exact words,
okay,
man.
Yeah.
So I had no intentions of being a teacher at all. And I tell people to this day, I didn't choose teaching. It chose me, man.
Right. That's crazy, man. So after I know you went to school, man, I see that you pledged the whole 9 yards, man. You had the full college, a different world experience.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, I did it all, man. All of it.
Yeah. So so you officially finished school when? Like your last official degree was done when?
My last degree, I got a master's in 2017. I finished undergrad fall 04.
Fall 04. Okay. Yeah. And so, tell me what it was like. And man, you and TJ really got to talk, man, as far as this education tip and black men in education. And, we've been communicating on Facebook. Yeah, man.
But yeah, because I like what he's doing on his podcast as well, man. And I've told TJ a couple times, like, I could see it. Like, he was destined to be a coach.
Yes.
TJ loved that basketball, man. And I really loved having his father as a coach.
Yeah, man. We talked about that, man, and how passionate he was about basketball. And, Jay, one thing about them Void, man, we gon' shed them tears after a loss. But, he was talking about all that stuff.
Yeah, he hated to lose.
He hated it. I mean,
he hated to lose. TJ, only person that probably could talk to TJ after a loss was his father.
Right. Yeah, man. I mean, and it's just crazy. Man, you got to listen to that interview. I think you'll see some things there you didn't know. So, did you go straight? What was your first teaching job that you had, or how did that part work out?
So a few months before I graduated, I got hired as a credit counselor. This one of these fix your credit programs, and somebody, I don't even know who it was, man. They came to me one day, said, you know what? There's a part-time teaching job over at Terry Sanford High School. You should apply. And for me, my first son was born 6 months after I graduated. I found out 2 weeks before graduation I had a baby on the way.
Word.
And so I didn't I was working from. My shift was like from 12 to 8 at the credit counseling job. And I hated it. I felt like it was the longest day ever. So I applied for the teaching job. It was part-time. So I was basically working from there, working at the school from like 8 to 11, would leave there and go to the credit counseling job. And I started, crazy part about it is my first day in the hallway, and it's high school.
Yeah.
I'm walking down the hallway. This kid bumps into my shoulder, and I turned around. I said, "Excuse me, sir." He dropped the N-bomb on me. He said, "Ninja, you bumped into me." and I'm flexing on him. Maybe you don't understand. I'm a teacher, and I show him my little teaching badge. He looked like, man, I don't care. Hey, you trying to see me or what?
Oh, wow.
But I never. So that was my first teaching job, but I never had any problems out of that kid anymore. And he was a senior too. Mm-hmm. So that was my first teaching job. I did that for a few months, and I was like, you know what? I actually like this.
Yeah.
And it's I didn't realize that I would like it as much. Mm-hmm. And so then once my son was born, mm-hmm. I actually no, my son hadn't been born yet. I ended up finding another teaching job that was part-time. Mm-hmm. And the ironic part about it was these two schools were right. One was on the rich side of Fayetteville State University. Mm-hmm. The other one was on the black side. So gotcha. One was considered a white school, one was considered a black school in the hood, right? Okay. One in the rich neighborhood, one in the poor neighborhood.
Right, okay.
And so I worked half a day. I ended up taking that job the second half of the day. So now I'm getting full-time benefits, but I'm working at two different schools, two totally different experiences. Mm-hmm. I did that for a semester, and when the summer came, I wasn't getting paid.
Right.
So I was like, oh, no, I need another job.
Right.
So I left there, and I went and started working in admissions at the college that I went to.
Okay.
Did that for a year, but, of course, my first day at the college, my son was born. Mm-hmm. The very first day of work. Okay. So I did it for a year, but we were on the road so much, traveling, recruiting, and things like that, man. And after a while, I was like, nah, I can't be on the road away from my child. Like, I just ain't doing it. So I left that and went back to the classroom. And every time I've left 2 or 3 times, man. Every time I left, I ended up back in the classroom.
Came back. So take me back though, Dana. Outside of, college and teaching, to find out that you were gonna be a father, what was that? Take me to that place, man.
It was amazing because first of all, and it's my son's mother. That's my road dog now, man. Mm-hmm. We done been to hell and back.
Wow. Okay.
But I'm grateful to say I got a good relationship with both of my son's mothers. Uh-huh. But that feeling was, it was interesting because something told me back in the day when I was younger that I was going to be the first father. Mm-hmm. My mom hated to hear me say that. She would say, I would ask her questions about being her children have. I said, who do you think is going to have kids first? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want none of y'all to have kids if you ain't married,
Right.
And I was like, no, but just answer the question. She never wanted to answer the question. Mm-hmm. But I knew something told me I was going to be the first father. So at first, man, it was crazy because when she told me, I was like, whoa, like, man, we don't even really know each other like that. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, I thought I could talk her into having an abortion, to be honest. That's the God's honest truth.
Wow.
Because I'm like, yo, I'm about to graduate college, man. Mm-hmm. My life is just getting started. She had went to the Army first before she came to college.
Ah, okay.
So, but she was a freshman. Mm-hmm. And she was just like, she got offended, man. Like, what? I always laugh at her. I tell her that the J. Cole story, that J. Cole song, is kind of like our story initially, man. Long story short, she didn't have a strong support system because her mother was against it as well. So I was like, well, check this out. I got a crib. Because Jason again, when I was at Fayetteville State, Jason graduated from the Air Force Academy, and after pilot training, he ended up getting an assignment. He switched his orders and got an assignment at Pope, which was right there in Fayetteville.
Yep.
So we had a house together. He bought a crib out there.
Okay.
So at the time, me and him were living together, and I was like, look, check this out. You having my baby? Yeah, you might as well go on and move in. But the feeling was I knew I was ready because I had been raising kids since I was 11.
Right.
But she had no idea, man. She was oblivious. I don't know what I would do. Mm-hmm. But it was a feeling of excitement because I realized I was ready for the challenge, man. And I think more so it was my dream to be able to give my future children every single thing that I feel like I missed out with my biological father.
Right. Yes, indeed. Now, your oldest is how old?
15, man. 15.
You got a 15-year-old, bro. This is crazy.
15.
And your youngest is how old?
He'll be 12 on the 17th. He's telling me his daily birthday countdown every single day.
So that's live, man. Now,
yeah.
Let me ask you, Dana. Now, you in a spot where you got two sons. You cool with both? You got two different baby moms. We're gonna say baby mamas.
Mm-hmm.
Dana,
mm-hmm.
How are you managing and having great relationships with both of them? How?
Well, that's where the identify yourself comes in.
Okay, let's go back there.
So let's go back. So oftentimes, I tell people when we grow up in the church, and it's common now, when we grow up in the church and certain parameters about what your parents allow you to do, I felt like mama didn't let me do anything. So anyway, when I got to college,
boy was wild.
I did it all. I was, man. And what's crazy was I was doing it. I was doing some of it earlier. I got exposed to smoking weed early. Like, I think I smoked weed for the first time before 8th and 9th grade, but I wasn't a smoker. I would do it when I got with my family out in California.
Gotcha.
I wasn't going to let anything get in the way of me graduating high school.
Right.
But freshman year, man, my grandfather died. He passed away on the 19th. So my mother and grandmother didn't tell me how sick he was until I called them. I had a flight to go to Cali after finals. And I'll never forget, I was walking from class. I'm like, Mom, I just finished my last final. About to go pack my bags, getting on the flight to come home tomorrow. Because by this time, my mom had moved back to Cali.
Okay.
And they told me how sick my grandfather was. And so freshman year, first semester, I was focused. Wasn't partying or nothing, man. I had a little girlfriend from high school. It was like me and her against the world. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But when I went home and my grandfather died, and of cancer, and to see somebody die of cancer, how his body had gotten weak and everything, Jay, I came back and I did it all, man. That night that my grandfather died was the beginning. Man, we smoked so much weed, drank so much Hennessy that night, and that became my coping mechanism when I went back to college. I still was killing it in the classroom.
Yeah.
But I was smoking every day, drinking all the time, and so during those years when I met both of my kids' mothers, I was still drinking, smoking, but handling my business. You know what I'm saying? And what happened was after marriage and divorce from my second child's mother, I was like, boom, rock bottom, man, rock bottom. And to me, I remember thinking like, man, ain't no woman gonna want me. I got 2 kids.
Right.
By 2 women, married and divorced. Like, man, and I was more angry about my son being gone than I was about the marriage.
Right.
And so what happened was, man, a few months went by. I'm playing the blame game, and I'm angry, like, because for me, I wanted to be successful at marriage because of what I saw my mom go through.
Boom, yeah.
And that's when one day I realized, I'd never forget, I went out and partied. We had a weekend retreat for my fraternity. We used to have a chapter retreat.
Shout out your fraternity, baby. Shout out the frat. I don't want to, you know what I'm saying?
Alpha Phi Alpha, man. The black and old gold, man, the first. And so I went out, I had cash. And I went out, and I was hounding that night, man. It was just, I'll never forget, there was a waitress. I was trying to get her so bad. And she wouldn't give me the time of day, but I'm drunk.
Yeah.
I'm so drunk, I'm trying to holler at her.
You
She's
just
talking
shoot
to some girls. I said, who is they? Yeah. I'm I'm shooting like Curry shooting. And she said, "Oh, that's my sister." I said, "Well, what's your sister drinking?" And they with her too. Get them whatever they want. And I wouldn't even buy women drinks back then.
Right.
That next day, I woke up. I went in my pocket to reach for some cigarettes. None. I said, "Oh, I got some money in the other pocket."
Yeah.
$2.
Right.
I went and knocked on the door in Daniel's room. I said, "Bro, why you let me spend all my money last night?" He said, "Man, you've been going through some things. I felt like you needed a little break. You needed to have fun."
Yeah, yeah.
But that morning was when I realized, like, okay, like you say, like the title of this podcast.
Yeah.
How did we get here?
There you go.
How did you get here, Dana?
Yeah.
And that was the day I decided to take ownership of my life. That was the day that I decided you made babies with them women. You made choices to get here. You like now you can't blame your mama. You can't blame your father, your stepdad. You can't blame siblings. You can't blame the mothers of your children. You made all these choices.
Yep.
And that was when I decided to start changing. Now, to get back to your question, there was a very high level of tension between me and both of their mothers. Me and DJ's mom, my first son, we couldn't stand each other, man. I'm talking about we really couldn't stand each other. I went to court with her for child custody. And I remember that was a terrible thing, man. Like, it got so bad. We used to have to meet at this place, and I would have to go in the front door to drop him off, and she would have to go in the back door. And, like, we couldn't even see each other. That's how bad it was, bruh. And I remember just watching my son's face and how that affected him when we were doing that, man. And so that was a little piece of it. And then with my second son, after that happened, we went our separate ways. She moved back to D.C. But here's the kicker, and this is why a lot of it was messed up. I knew my younger son's mother before I knew my older son. So we were technically in a long distance relationship, and I cheated and got somebody else pregnant. And, so, you know what I'm saying? So now at the time, I wasn't thinking. I knew it, but I wasn't thinking about that. It was just like, I'm the man. Pride, and really not just pride. It's the trauma of childhood. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But to I had to start owning, first of all, how I got to that place in life. Right. What things affected it? So I started digging. I'm like, okay, the number one thing is not knowing my biological father. I'm the only one out of all 6 of my mom's kids that didn't meet his father. Number 2, grandfather was the most influential man in my life. Lost him.
He's gone. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? He's gone now. Now that's when what did I do to cope? Drink, smoke weed. I was working, taking care of my kids. Everything. So I'm like, I ain't bad. I ain't getting no DWIs. Praise God, I never got a DWI. I was close.
Grace of God.
Man, so much grace. And so we were able to build because I started working on me. I stopped pointing the blame, and my mission, Jay, was, guess what? I know this woman don't like me. She might even hate me, but guess what? I'm going to do everything that I can to be father of the millennium. I tell people all the time, I'm working to be father of the millennium.
I hear you. Okay.
And the thing is because what I failed to mention, my biological father, I didn't know this until after I found out he was dead.
Yeah.
He had 2 sons when he was dating my mom. Their mother dropped him off one day and never came back to get him.
What you say?
And he raised them. Exactly. So this is the first time I really find out these great things about my biological father.
Right.
Up until then, I thought he was just a dirtbag that just left me hanging.
Deadbeat. Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, whoa, you could do this. So you know, fortunately, I had the upper hand with DJ, and I took advantage of that. That's a whole nother story in and of itself, which was part of the reason why there was animosity between his mother and I.
Okay.
So DJ's been with me primarily all of his life.
Okay.
But what I did was when I started working on me, Jay, and it was a lot of nights of crying, a lot of nights of God, why? God, like, what did I do? But like I said, I had to own it, and I wouldn't take it back, because as I started to work on me, eventually things came around.
Yep.
And my sons grew to a point to where they had their own interpretation of what was going on, and I a lot of biting my own tongue, a lot of humility, getting rid of that pride and stuff, man, and just ultimately I was determined to be the last man standing, and let both of them know, listen, we may not see eye to eye, we may not be together, but you can rest assured, no matter what, I'm going to make sure you know that I'm going to not only take care of my son, but I'm going to have a relationship with my son by any means necessary, brother. And so that's how we got to where we are now, man. That's how we got to where we are now.
Yeah, and I think, Dana, again, we've always taught to address the root, not the fruit. You know what I mean? And we have to do that, have that. One of my mentors always taught me to reflect daily. You know what I'm saying? I'm always checking daily, you know, how interactions I had, how could I have done it better? And one thing I oftentimes, where as men we can miss the mark with our children when we're not with the mother for whatever reason, but we're still trying to be there. You know, you're just putting some money on the book, so to speak. A child needs more than that, and especially as when we're trying to raise these young men, you know what I'm saying? They need more than that. They need, again, going back to it, it's about relationship. I haven't worked with kids in the capacity of being a teacher or anything like you and TJ and some of the other brothers I know that's educators and stuff, but at church I deal with a lot of young kids, and in building relationships with young teenage boys, one thing in build that relationship is Brother Jay gonna be consistent every week. And I'm gonna wear that joker down and get with them. And you know how it is, check on them. I'm trying to get in with them, find out what they into, what they listening to, what they wearing, what is that you got on, what is that, who is that, who that you texting in your phone, you know, just all of these things. And I'm gonna consistently do that every week until they're like, man, this dude is okay. He's authentic. You know what I'm saying? And it's just a beautiful thing, man, that you built that relationship with your sons like that. And then if we're going to be, in my estimation, if we're building these quality relationships, it does go over into how I relate with their mother as well, because they're looking at that. They're looking at there's drama between you and the mama. And like you said, if y'all going through separate doors, if y'all fussing and fighting every time you come around, that plays into how they're going to interact with women. You know what I'm saying?
I always would say this. Yeah. And this is what made me also shift how I handled their mothers. Yeah. Even in the midst of me doing all kind of stuff, right? Yeah. I always had in the back of my mind, Dana, your interaction, the way you treat their mothers is going to be their first direct lesson on how to treat a woman. Come on now. And when I'm having those conversations with myself, I'm like, God, nah, man, God, she called me everything but a child of God. God, she disrespect me. She did. And it was like, son, you're going to have to eat a whole lot of humble pie, because if you respond, if you react versus respond to these interactions with their mothers, then they're going to think it's okay to talk reckless to a woman. They're going to think it's okay to disrespect a woman. They're going to think it's okay to do all these other different things. But always know this. I knew in the back of my mind, they ain't going to always be little. Right. They're going to get to a point at some point, and they're going to understand how their mothers are. Right. And I promise you, when it started happening and my son started asking questions, because I would always tell my sons this when they ask me things. Now, this is my side of the story, son. You could have a conversation with your mother, and she might tell you something that conflicts with what I'm saying. That does not mean she's wrong. That does not mean I'm right. There you go. That just means those are our different perspectives
There you
about
go.
this particular situation.
There you go. There you go. And that's 100 because, again, you always talk about in situations, and I talk about it in the workspace, what we do, and it's all of it is relationships, but always, you'll have different departments and sections of our corporation that they're arguing and fussing and fighting or whatever. And I was like, one thing that we oftentimes do, Dana, is we overvalue our contribution and we undervalue others. You know what I'm saying?
You better say that.
That's what we do.
That, bro.
That's what we do.
So true.
Man, every time I go over there to that department, they ain't doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? Every time I go over, they over there chilling. They'll be working like we work. You know what I'm saying? But that's your perspective from here. And I said, we go and interact with people sometimes a few minutes throughout a day, and we try to formulate our entire opinion of who they are. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same thing with perspective. If you're looking at the side of a Coke can, on my side, it might just have that side that's the nutritional fact. So I'm like, man, that can don't say Coke on it. And you like, this says Coke on this side over here. And I'm like, no, it don't. But it's all about perspective, man. And you always, in building relationship, you have to give credence and give room and space for that person to give their perspective on y'all's interaction.
And then to go a little further, I learned that there's a difference between perspective and perception.
Okay, talk about it.
Perspective is from the inside. So we have a perspective about growing up as a military brat because that's what we grew up as.
Right.
But a lot of people's perception was that we, as military kids, a lot of times, especially back in our day in the 80s and 90s, like if you was a military kid, like you had everything.
Right.
And I realized like we didn't have a whole lot. My mama, I don't know how she made things happen, but so when we talk about that communication piece, we easily get judgmental because when we referring to that situation with the other departments, we have a perception of what they're doing.
Perception,
unless it's a joint project that we are specifically working on with them.
Right.
We have a perspective. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's good.
And I like what you're talking about with communication because I realized that everything revolves around communication.
Yep.
One of the best things that I did was in my and to be honest, I'm at the point in my classroom experience. This is year 15 in the classroom, right?
Okay. Yep.
And as much as I love the mathematics, you know what's my favorite part of the job? Building relationships with kids.
That's it.
They ask me all the time, man, how you get Pookie to do this and that? And Pookie, my imaginary student in everything.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
And so how do you get him or her to do this and that? And sometimes I tell them, first of all, I treat them like a human. I know what it's like to be that kid that you just had to get your other younger siblings ready for school. Or now my mother wasn't a cursor. I can count on my fingers the number of times I heard my mama curse. But and my mother wasn't a drinker, wasn't a smoker, none of that stuff.
None of that, yeah.
But at the same time, I know what it's like to have so many other things going on in the home.
Yeah.
When you got a mother that's a single mother with several kids. I know what it's like. So when this kid come in, I'm not about to fuss and yell at this kid because he don't have his homework or because he don't have materials. I'm going to treat him like a human being. I put myself in that child's shoes. And so you said something about dealing with the kids at church. When they see our humanity, I don't like that. That's a different perspective, and they see our consistency more important. And so when we communicate, like when we asking them what they listening to, when we asking them, well, you know, what's the latest slang and things like that, because we want to always. A lot of times as adults, we like to shun the new thing that young people are doing.
Yep, 100.
And sometimes we fail to realize that we were in their shoes and we were being followers. There was a point in time where we were followers and going with every little trend and things like that. But that communication is so important. And even like, for example, I do. When I learned about the DISC assessment, man. When I went through training about the DISC assessment and learning the different there's a bunch of those different personality assessments. But
DISC is one.
When I started learning the different personality assessment, my younger son, Mama, she's a lion. I put animals. She's a
right.
lion.
Yeah.
And I tell her all the time, you always want to tell people what to do.
Right.
But we also reflect back when we was married, and I was like, look, I'm a grown tail man.
Right.
You ain't about to just be telling me what to do. You know what I'm saying? But I realized a lot of times that's just her personality. She doesn't mean anything by it most of the time.
Right.
She's just straight to the point. She's direct. She's matter of fact. She's about results. She's task oriented.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So but at the time when I was young and married and getting in my feelings, all I could think about was, look, I'm a grown man. Don't tell me what to do, because a lot of times our pride, and I think that's another reason for a lot of people for high divorce rates and things like that. Undealt trauma that's been undealt with from people's childhood, and then that trauma. Speaking of the communication, we oftentimes haven't even self-assessed what our own personal traumas are, and then if we have, we don't know how to communicate them, because a lot of times, number one, we're afraid we're going to be judged.
Yep.
And then number two, we're afraid to be our authentic self. I had to, by me not knowing my real father, I looked to my grandfather, I looked to my stepdad, I looked to my big brothers, I looked to my uncles, I looked to all of these different people to try to put together the different. It's almost like trying to build the perfect self.
Yeah.
And I was being like all these other different people. And after when I got to rock bottom after divorce, I said, you know what? You got to figure out who you are.
Yeah.
Who were you before outsiders put these labels on you? Who were? I'm gonna take you back.
Take me back.
So remember, right? So Bishop Holcomb's daughter, Nikki Holcomb, rest in peace.
Yes, sir.
She was a beautiful soul, man. But Nikki used to hang out with Pooh and Ramondi's big sister, Raquel, and there was one other girl, and these were like the finest teenagers at the church at the time, right? And they used to always come up to me, he gonna be a heartbreaker, he gonna be a heartbreaker. I had no idea what was being spoken over me at the time.
Right.
So what did I grow up to? Later on, when I put two and two together, one of my uncles was a real pimp.
Right.
When I you know what I'm saying? Like, so I got older and I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's how I'm supposed to be. Supposed to have a bunch of women and this and that.
Right.
So we take on these different labels and we let outsiders, and not outsiders in the sense of like people outside the family, but we let other people speak things into our lives.
Yep.
And we take on those different labels.
Yeah.
And so I had to start shedding those different labels, and I started asking myself, who were you before other people told you who you were?
That's
and
real.
when I started going to that, I was like, you know what? Well, I can remember when I was younger, my uncles, they would tell me that I was humble. My grandfather used to tell me, you know, I was a good kid. I was really mellow, level-headed.
Yeah.
But of course, going through life, by the time I'm in high school and in the college, I'm angry, bruh. I'm angry because all these other stuff that didn't happen, all this trauma and everything, and I'm angry. And what do? We put on masks, we put on protective gear, just like when I played football. And you couldn't tell me I wasn't 6'2", 250 when I put on that uniform and walked down to the field.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, indeed.
Jay, I was claiming 5'6.5" for about 12 years until I took DJ to get a physical a couple years ago. And you know, they get to the age, they like, well, I'm bigger than you, Dad.
Yeah.
And the lady, I said, ma'am, can you take my height? She said, yeah, you're 5'5.5". I said, dang, I've been really false claiming. I've been super false claiming. So I think that communication piece comes from a lot of times we don't know who we are, man.
Right.
And I really grew to the point to where I had to, even when we talk about the church thing,
Yeah.
All of those experiences helped me gain a personal relationship with the Lord, man.
There you go.
And I started studying the Word for myself. I started praying for myself, and I started seeing God do some things in my life that I knew if it wasn't for God, I knew that was God.
Right.
When I took a field sobriety test and the man said that I just blew a .09 and the legal limit is a .07, and you let me sit in the car, and then you say I got to go on another call, I'm going to hope that you do the right thing and wait for somebody to come pick you up. That's God. That ain't nothing Dana Harris.
Yeah, man.
So when I started getting into that, my relationship with God, and that's what made me start really building up. And I realized, I remember praying for a period of time, man, and it was like, you may feel like you don't have a earthly father, but I'm your heavenly father.
Come on, man.
And I can show you, you can find your identity in me.
That's it.
I'll never forget, there was this lady, I ain't big on getting in people's prayer lines.
Right.
You know, we grew up we saw some serious stuff at CHOP when we were young, man.
Yeah.
We had some serious exposure.
We did.
And I remember this lady, her name was Prophet Jordan. Now, I don't even get big into titles.
Yep.
Just say you know the Lord.
Yep, there you go.
And she had this long prayer line. People, I'm sitting in the back of the church, man, and I was looking, and I'm listening to stuff she's saying to people. I'm like, whoa, yeah, she got the spirit on her.
She on point.
Telling people stuff about their life. Yeah, like if you don't know them, you wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
So finally, I sat back there. I said, you know what? I'm gonna go up there and get prayer. Jay, everybody up there before me, she was telling them about themselves. I get up there, she said, she hit me with the 1-2. The 1-2, when they look you up and down once and twice. She said, now what do you want from God, young man?
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, you supposed to tell me. That's why I'm up here. You told everybody else.
Yeah.
I said, ma'am, I just don't want my sons to suffer from the sins of their father. Jay, when I tell you that lady began to say things about my life and my interaction, and two things that stuck out to me that she said. She talked about those spirits, you know, in regards to just being promiscuous and things like that, and she said the word pimp, and I'm like, whoa, hold up, wait, that's really that's what I grew up around,
right?
And she said this. She said, you have built up an anger towards your mother because of your father. Man. And that broke me. I was like, man, I don't know this lady, but that's God.
Hit you between the eyes, boy.
Man, that was the Mike Tyson uppercut.
Wow.
And that changed my life, Jay. That was 2017, but that changed my life because unbeknownst to me, I did do that. And I can remember having conversations with my mom in my adult life, and it was almost as if she was she would talk about my father and say these different things about him, and I would say, Mom, I'm good now. Like, I'm okay.
Yeah. Like,
I'm grown. But that day I called my mom, and I said, Mom, I apologize. And I told her what the interaction with the lady was, and I said, I really have felt that way. I said for several years I thought I just blamed my dad for being a deadbeat. I said, but it came to me, you know, there's no way that he would raise these other two and wouldn't want to have nothing to do with me. And I said, when I made that realization, I started building up a wall between you and I. You know, still, you know, it wasn't a major wall to where I didn't speak to Mom or nothing like that, but it was just back there in my subconscious. I had that little closet back there to where I felt that way, man, and I got free from that. And it's a beautiful thing, man. But that communication, communication is everything, bro.
It is, man.
Everything.
It is. I wanted to ask you too now, because it's two things. I just interviewed my god brother the other day. His birthday was on the 27th. He turned 27. Your birthday is the 24th?
25th.
Yeah, it's on Christmas. Okay, yeah, yours is 25th. My wife is the 26th. So did you already turn 39?
39, bro.
Okay, so you hit 39. He turned 39. I turned 39 in March. But the reason I highlight that, guys, is two things I want to point out. But if you listen, Dana's been sharp young man since we talking about we knew each other since second grade, on top of his game.
Right.
Did what he had to do in high school, did what he had to do academically, pledged, played sports, did all of this. So we can have these things, guys, where we have this side of life together, but you also got to be willing enough and humble enough and real with yourself to say, I got these other things over here that I got to deal with and line up. Skeens and I have this deal that we talk about, and I was just talking about it with my god brother, is that today we find that there's a realophobia. People are afraid of the real. And it's not just...
Wait.
Go ahead.
Hold up, though. So can you do me this favor?
Yeah.
Because I like what you said. Can you break down the real? Because I think the real has been intertwined with keeping it real. Right. And you and I both know that the origin of keeping it real was the real. Be honest with me. And when we was young, and I said, keep it real with me, Jay, man. What you think about these shoes?
Right.
Keep it real meant be honest with me. So carry on, because I'd like to throw that in there.
Yes. Well, in this day and age, we were just talking about it, real is the highlight package that you see on social media.
You gotta say it, bro.
It's a highlight package. We pretend that our life is all highlights. Everything is going good. You know, we equate it as sports fans. I dropped 30. I had 30, 10, 10, and 10. Quadruple double every night. I'm always on vacation. My husband just bought me a brand new car. You know what I'm saying? And that it's not real life. And a part of the real we got to be real with ourselves. And then we have to have space on both sides to be real with one another in our relationships, in our interactions. One of my stories that I tell Dana about me and Liz have been together. November was 18 years that we've been together total. You know, November 2002, right? And as long as we've been together, I even shared this with Skeens because I could talk to him about stuff I be tripping about. I got another homeboy, big brother, I could share with. Because of, watch this. This is where I had to be real. A part of the real of Jay, and I was sharing with my god brother, is that, and I'll share it again. I think if you remember, there was Elder Moore at church. He has a church in Austin. He's Pastor Moore. And he came one year, Dana, and he was talking about how oftentimes, talking about, quote unquote, being real, we applaud ourselves on how we're doing in things that are not a challenge for us. He said, I want to know how you doing on the stuff that's a challenge for you. And he stood up there and he's like, I'm a pastor, I'm married, I'm faithful, but my challenge is I still cannot interact with women a certain way. I can't do that. I got to hold myself accountable. He went, and that just hit me between the eyes, Dana, because one of the flaws of me, I was the champion around for being the church boy. You know, Jay was around, but Jay never smoked, Dana. I never smoked weed. I never drank. I never smoked a square, Dana, to this day, bro.
That's good.
But I ran. Wait, watch.
Because you was always a stand-up dude.
But watch this, Dana. I ran around championing myself for that, but that never was my challenge. Dana, it wasn't a challenge. That did not challenge me. Right? What was my challenge was running this mouth and using this gift to gab and finding myself in precarious situations with women where I didn't need to be. That was my challenge. So it's like, how are you doing in that?
Yeah.
How are you doing in that arena of life?
Yeah.
How are you doing with that? So I say all that to say, so my wife, it was something simple, Dana. Simple, but because of how my mind is the gift and the curse of being creative and being in theater and being able to come up with things, if she didn't tell me early enough that she had to maybe be at work at a different time earlier in the morning or something, my brain can automatically go, oh, she going to see a dude. Is she really going to work, Jay? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so as our relationship have grown and we become more intimate, one of the areas where that intimacy moment happened is like, yo, let me be real with you, man. When you don't tell me that you, because I'm a forgetful husband from time to time. So I'm like, yo, I was telling her this, and I'm like, yo, how is she going to take this? You know, is she going to take like, what you mean? Why do you think that? So she just looked at me. She's like, so what you're telling me is you're a little crazy. I was like, yeah. And she said, okay, cool. Cool.
And I think we're afraid to have those. I think we're afraid to, like you say, have real conversations because for whatever reason, we a lot of times jump to the conclusion of that other person's response.
Right. We do.
I've been guilty of that. A lot, man.
Yeah.
And it's ironic because even when you talk about that, right? Never drinking, never smoking. So now I've been sober for January 1 made 4 years I've been sober, man.
Wow.
Praise God.
Yeah.
And I tell my family when I get around them, I tell them, I said, I'm not tripping. Y'all do y'all thing. You drink,
right.
You smoke. If we need to go anywhere, I'm the DD.
There you go.
I'm gonna make sure we get there safely.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
But the thing that I learned is that there's still another level of accountability.
Oh, okay.
Sobriety just helped me dig to the root of the traumas and the mess and all the stuff that I threw in the pot to get me where I ended up in life.
Yeah.
But there's another level of accountability. So, so I don't smoke, I don't drink no more.
Right.
But there are other areas in my life where I still need to get better at. Yes. And I think that we should always be improving, but we are really afraid to have those conversations with ourselves first.
Yeah.
And we're afraid to be authentic with other people. And I think that it's important that you mention mentors.
Yeah.
You know, because we now understand that in these areas that I want to get better, I have to put mentors in my life and people that have either dealt with it or people that can give me wise counsel.
There you go.
And so when I like to relate things to athletics all the time, but the thing is the greats, they not think about it back in the day, right? When I'll never forget. Speaking of TJ, man, I remember Coach Boyd used to always the layup line. You know, that's one of the most basic things in sports, right?
Yep.
But as a right-hander, it's easy to get on the do the layup line on the right side. It's even easy to do the layup line on the left side if I'm dribbling with my right hand.
Right.
But Coach Boyd used to tell us, I want you to not only be, I don't want you to be in the left side, coming from the left side to the goal, dribbling with your right hand. And he showed us the importance of you're protecting the ball. When you coming from the left side and you dribbling with your left hand, now you got yourself between the defender and the ball, so now you freeing yourself up for a shot. But I use that scenario because the only way we're going to improve in that area is by dribbling with that left hand. And I learned the science of it as an adult is that when we do things like that, we now create new neurological pathways.
Yes, sir.
So when you had that conversation with Liz, when we have those difficult conversations, we open up that new pathway for communication with our spouse or with whoever it is to build some dialogue so that now we can get stronger and build the bonds of this relationship more solid, man.
Right. Like I said, how are you doing in the thing that is a challenge? I'm good with my right hand all day. What? Okay, can you go left? You know, that's in basketball. Can he go left though? Can he use his left hand? And that's what we're trying to do. And a part of this platform is what we want to do is not expose, but not in a negative way. Expose it to say that we all are going through our how did we get here moment. And how we're going to get there is together. You know what I'm saying? By having these open lines of dialogue. And one of the reasons that I like to champion men like you, TJ, my partner, Kai Phoenix, is that and we're breaking down that old adage that men aren't great communicators. I'm like, I know intellectual brothers that can elocute and convey themselves well. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what I'm trying to show, man. You know what I mean? And I think it's also key, Dana, is, and I wanted to go back to, man, as you were talking about communication, and then as you were making your journey as becoming a teacher, what kind of struggles did you go through initially, and how did you overcome some of those struggles being a brand new teacher?
My biggest struggle probably was the fact that I hated the fact that even though I was a math major, I had to go back through the teacher certification program.
Right, okay.
So in my mind, it was like, why do I got to take all these classes? I got a degree in math. I know math.
Right.
And so that was my biggest struggle. As a matter of fact, at one point, I ended up losing my job because I wasn't passing the praxis exam.
Okay.
I took it, I don't know how many times, and I didn't pass it, man. And I knew that I knew the mathematics on that exam, but it was a timed exam, and I did the math on the number of questions and the approximate amount of minutes that you would have to work on each question. I was like, nah, man, this is disproportional. Like, this ain't cool.
Right.
And so that was my biggest struggle. But I was able to get through that. But on the classroom side, my biggest challenge probably would be learning. Back then, it was easy because when I went in the classroom, I started teaching at 23. And teaching high schoolers, you know, I still had siblings that was in high school. And so I still was very, very close in proximity to their age,
very relatable,
their struggles and everything like that. The other challenge that I would say I had was trying to balance the difference between what I was dealing with in my personal life and then my professional life. My heart started to get heavy because I seen quickly how many young men especially that were having these challenges and having identity issues, man. So many, but the biggest challenge that I went through really was that certification process, man. Because to me it was like, yo, I don't think y'all realize I got a degree in math, not math education.
Right.
Like, I can go work for the government, bruh.
Right,
like,
right.
And they will pay me way more
Handsomely
than what y'all paying me. But I'm choosing to be here.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest struggle, man. But I started to I didn't pull in mentors necessarily at that age as well. You know what I'm saying? I was young and felt like I had it. I felt like I had a lot of areas in life all together. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
I realized that I didn't.
I think as I think about you, I think about TJ. I think about my, a close friend of the family, my little sister, Michelle, that passed. She was a teacher and a coach. And I think about when I was at doggone Clark Elementary School, and the teacher that changed my life was Miss Patty Sullivan. Miss Sullivan, man. She changed my life because she didn't teach just from the textbook, but she taught where I was. You know what I mean? And I'm going to have her on the show here probably within the next few weeks. We've already talked, man, because I've actually linked back up with her, man. And what I found with successful teachers like you guys is, again, you don't just teach from the textbook. You teach where the students are. And once you give a person value, appreciation, and mix that with consistency, those are some of the fertile grounds to build a great relationship. So then when I come to you with the mathematics or the English or the history, your mind is fertile to receive it now because of the relationship that I built with you. The ground. That's it. You tilled it. Yeah. So
that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Now, how did you transition from the classroom to what you're doing now?
So I'm still in the classroom, but I ended up tutoring. Man, I tell people I was a broke teacher.
Okay.
Straight up, it was it basically started out like I needed the money, man, and so I would tutor people, face to face here and there, and just word of mouth.
Yep.
And I had been doing that for a few years, but it was still just hustling, as my coach always tells me.
Yep.
Hustling. And I don't even remember how I got exposure to teaching online, but when I did, it started out as Skype, and then it went from Skype to Google Hangout, and then from Google Hangout to Zoom. And I think I started teaching on Zoom in 2016. Well, actually, technically, no, I wasn't teaching on Zoom, but I started teaching online in 2016 because what I realized is that I always, early in my career, man, at first I was like, oh, I'm going to teach for a couple of years, then I'll go be an administrator. But I didn't like the politics. I just didn't want to get into the politics. I was there for the kids, and that was it. And so I realized at that time I didn't want to be an administrator, but I just knew that there was something more, man. I wanted to be able to reach kids on a larger scale, man. And now in the past 5 years, I've been teaching all online as far as my tutoring business.
Yeah.
And I started back in 2016. One of my students encouraged me to do the YouTube thing, man. And it just started out as an experiment in class. And I kept with it. I'm thankful and blessed that, 2020 took my business to a level to where it was like, oh, whoa, wait,
wow,
whoa, this is pretty nice. And,
right.
It's continuing to grow.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful that 2020 I was prepared when COVID came because of what I had been doing all along, as the song saying, shooting in the gym. I like when I study people like, of course, for our era, it was Jordan,
of course.
But even, I don't know about you, but I didn't like Kobe initially. I didn't like Bron initially. Because in our generation, it's like, wait, you're not going to compare nobody to
Mike.
GOAT.
You can't do it.
You know what I'm saying? But then I realized, no, there's greatness.
Yeah, absolutely.
In these guys. And there's something about Kobe that after a while I was like, you know what, I got to respect this, man.
Yeah, man. Work it, man.
So I was just prepared for the opportunity when it presented itself, man. But it's what I love about tutoring is that there's that one-on-one interaction. I don't have to worry about all the other disruptions in the classroom. And I can remember when we were at Clark, when you first had that experience with you academically, and you found out why you were experiencing some academic trouble.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I never told you this probably because at that age I didn't know how to convey it.
Yeah.
But as my best friend, I was like, yo, you know what? In my mind, I felt like, you know what? I do my work and my boy work. like that's how, that's how I felt.
Yeah, man.
I'll never forget that feeling. That's how I felt because we would talk about that experience with you.
Yeah, man.
But I'm pretty sure as you got older, your perspective of that experience changed, man.
Yeah.
And so it's like now that one-on-one interaction with a kid. One of the biggest things I tell people all the time, especially, potential clients, is a lot of times teachers have kids thinking that they don't know math and that they can't do math, but it's several different experiences. Sometimes it's the approach, it's the communication between the teacher and the student. Sometimes, especially at the elementary level, because a lot of elementary level teachers are not strong math teachers. And even in their coursework, they don't get a lot of math. So that's one of the things, but I tell people, relationships is going to now help me build this student's confidence. And then now when their confidence builds, they're going to do better at math. But math has also become a lot of reading comprehension. So if a child struggles with reading comprehension,
Right.
nowadays the mathematics is even tougher, especially when it comes to like standardized testing. Because if I could take take the equation out from this word problem, give it to this student, and they'll get it. But the wording may not make sense to them, and so many other things, man. So really, tutoring has allowed me to really connect with kids on a one-on-one level, and really make my classroom across the country, really around the world.
Right, right. You can be
I haven't
anywhere.
tutored any kids overseas.
Yeah.
But I have done a couple consultations with overseas clients.
Right, got you. And guys, what Dana, his platform is younggurusmathtutoring.com. So you can go there if your kids are going through it, and need some help with their tutoring. But you can find him on YouTube under that. He's on IG under that. He's on Facebook under that. And again, man, just when I saw, and he does his series where he's dropping the math jewels, and I go and look at the jewels, I'm like, yo, I don't remember how to do none of this stuff that Dana's talking about. But and y'all, just to go back, man, and just because he was my man, early on in third grade or whatnot, the teachers was paying attention to that I was writing words like backwards and stuff like that. I didn't know. And, they found out, hey, I was dyslexic. So I had to go to another school, which ended up, it was cool because when Dana moved to Killeen, it was close by. East Ward was right over there. It was close by your crib. So it worked out for me. You know what I'm saying? But, they had a whole set of things where they helped me to, I don't know how. I can't really connect with now how they did it, but they helped me to not see things that way or write things that way. They had exercises and skills to where they kind of taught me out of it. You know what I'm saying? By the time I was in fourth grade, to where, I turned out to be a pretty decent student when I applied myself and stuff like that, man. But, dude, when I saw you release this series, I'm like, yo, this dude wait, he teaching math? Wait a minute, he's tutoring? And I was just brimming with pride, man, of, how you held it down like that, man, and just what you give into the community with your gift. You know what I'm saying, man? And like you said, with the internet has shrunk the world, so you can give that gift out all over the place. You know what I'm saying, man? So I salute you for that, man. Now, I want to get ready to close us out here, but as I was sitting here and thinking, as we was talking about relationships and stuff right now, is Dana at a space where he would get married again?
I would. I plan to get married again.
Okay.
I just look at relationships from a different perspective, man. I think, even going back through everything we talked about and trauma and things like that, I think that marriage is something that we have to know it's going to be constant work. I'm glad to know that there are more men out there that are priding themselves on being faithful husbands, dedicated fathers, and things like that, man. But it made me think about this. One of the accountability calls that I'm on every Sunday. Okay. And one of the brothers, he just celebrated 15 years. And so, the brother that was moderating said, Vic, man, how did you make it 15 years? What's the secret so far? Yeah. He said, man, every day I do what I can to make my wife happy. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, man, it's another brother, man. He's talking about making the wife happy, but ain't nobody talking about making the man happy.
Right, he on this sucker stuff. Nah.
Right. And he says, and my wife, I feel like she does everything she can to make me happy.
There you go.
And what I realized in that moment is, in order for us as a man or woman, but we'll speak from the perspective of a man. Yep. In order for me as a man to have a goal of making a woman happy every day, I have to first know who I am.
You have to.
I have to first know that I'm whole.
There you go.
Because if I'm not, then I'm gonna at some point feel like I'm giving,
Yep.
and I'm gonna possibly open myself up to be vulnerable to say, "Hey, wait, I'm doing all the giving here. Well, why isn't something being done to make me happy?"
Right.
And so yeah, man. Like I look at relationships from a total different perspective now, and that perspective is growing every single day, man. But I think a lot of people have given up hope on successful marriages and things like that. But I still have faith in relationships and marriage. But I think the biggest thing is wholeness.
Yeah.
Wholeness first, man.
I think too. One it's several keys, but like you said, the work never stops, ever. Never stops. Never stops. You know, my parents this year be 42 years. They still working.
Wow.
And,
wow.
Yeah, bro. September 1979, bro. 17 and 18 years
wow,
old, man.
Man.
You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So the work never stops. And one of the beautiful things about my pop, man, and he and I went through a transition in our relationship from, you know, and I can see it in my sons now. And I was sharing with him the other day, I had an epiphany that early on with Trey, I'm trying to be tough on him to try to get him to skate past certain pitfalls and stuff and learn it early. And sometimes I'm forgetting that, as again, one of my mentors always puts it, our children are like aliens, man. They just got to Earth and they're trying to still figure this stuff out. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes we want them to not be aliens, but they are. They're still just trying to figure out how all of this stuff works out, right? So I have to balance how much I'm on Trey and how much I gotta let him figure stuff out. So then with my dad, I was always a level kid, level teenager, but my dad knew all of the things that he did coming up, and he was trying to make sure I wasn't doing that. So when I became late teenager, early 20s, he could finally see like, oh, okay, this dude hasn't been doing any of the stuff I thought that he might have been doing. And so our relationship evolved and went to a place. And then when I moved out of his house and then became married, we went to another place because now I can talk to him as a husband, right? And he can give me game as a husband, and I'm like, yo, me and him experiencing some of the same challenges, and we both ride in the car like, yo, these females sometime, man, you know, man, your mama, man, you know, right? So the work continues, right? Then I think it's also key, like you said, Dana, is that you come into the relationship as, you know, they talk about the whole, you know, you get 50, but it's 100 is what you're doing.
100.
It's 100 that you're giving. And you come as your best version of yourself first. And I always tell people that as much as I love my wife and, you know, I try my best to be an example, and I try to convey my love for my wife and family for everybody to see. I can't put all of who I am can't be in Liz because she is an alien. You know, we just more advanced aliens, but she is a flawed person as well. And if you put all of your eggs, your emotional eggs over there in that basket, because we're flawed humans, they're going to disappoint you. Right. Bro. And if they disappoint you and you got everything over there, it goes back to Dana, like you said, man. Bishop used to always say, my identity is with divinity. My identity is first with God. That's where it is first. Yeah. And if I put it in somebody else, it's going to lead to disappointment. And that leads into if you disappoint me enough, then I'm going to start to resent you. And that's what we see happens in these relationships. One of my favorite lines, one of me and Skeens' favorite movies is from Love Jones. And my man Savon in the movie, he was talking to Darius Lovehall, and he's like, everybody hopping, skipping, diving, falling in love. Falling in love ain't ish. Somebody please tell me how to stay there. And that's really what marriage is about. You can fall in love, But how do you stay in that place through the peaks, the valleys, you know, when you both was fine, at the peak of your physical prowess, and you was getting, again, another mentor of mine said, when you get married, all you be doing is, having sex and eating Olive Garden, whatever your favorite food is.
Yeah.
That's what you be doing. You getting it in all the time. You going out to eat. Then you have kids, and then you got jobs, and then you got things that happen in life. You may have health challenges. You may have job change. COVID-19 may happen. So how at that point can you then stay in a marriage, Dana? And in this day and age, it's disposable. It's like, oh man, I'm out of here. Once the work begins, I'm out. I'm gone.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what it is.
I learned over time that it's a choice. Even with being faithful to a woman, I learned that it becomes a choice because there's always going to be somebody else that can offer more to the man or the woman.
Yes.
There's always going to be somebody that's going to look better.
Yes.
And all those different things, because we are it's a word that they use, but as men, we like the appearance of things, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I love listening to the teachings of Dr. Miles Monroe, man. But anyway,
come on, man, so plain too, boy.
We have to make a daily choice to say, I'm going to love this person. I'm going to love my spouse. I'm going to love my children and things like that.
Yeah.
And when we make that choice, then now it becomes a lot simpler.
Yeah.
I have there's a woman I used to talk to, right? Excuse me, this is when I really discovered this, like the biggest discovery was that, oh, you know what? You can actually be faithful.
Yeah.
When you were younger, you were faithful.
Yeah.
But you allowed these other things in life to cause you to not be faithful, right?
Yeah.
And so I say this. I want to be with someone that I still love them even when I don't like them.
There you go.
So we ain't seeing eye to eye right now, but you know what? I still love this woman.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's so important, man. Yeah. So important.
One thing I tell Dana to dudes, because again, dudes, our egos be so big sometimes. And I tell guys, because sometimes we act like it's just a one-way street as far as our expectation of women. Women also have an expectation of us that we have, as men, that we got to meet. So I always say this to put it plain. There's always a dude that's more well-endowed than you and got more bread than you. So,
all day, every day.
So at the end of the day, what else is this relationship built on? You know what I'm saying? I know as men, we be thinking, man, I had her like this and that. Like, bruh, stop. Relax. Relax.
Nothing, brother. You ain't doing nothing.
Relax. What is the relationship actually built on? And I think, I always talk about this all the time, is that people talked about how long Liz and I were dating before we got married. But the positive of us dating for so long, because we weren't just dating. A lot of people thought we were dating from a place of stagnation, but we were dating from a place of where we were just growing slowly as far as the communication piece, because we came from Dana, Dana, you know my family. You know what I'm saying? You know my mom. I came up in the household, communication, loving. Both people are there. They're engaged. My wife, both of her parents are there. They're engaged, but it's different. They communicate from a place of yelling and screaming and slamming doors, not from sitting down and building. So when she has
and that in and of itself, though, is one of the things I think people forget, man.
Yeah.
You got two total different worlds coming together.
Yeah, man. You're trying to mesh them together, and she's got her way, her relationships, her disappointment, her life experience, how she was raised. I have the same thing, and we basically are meeting, and depending on when you start dating, you're bringing 15, 20, 30 years, however old you are, you're bringing all of that baggage there. And you got to, just like when you come from the grocery store, and you sorting, okay, all right, oh, that's got to go in the fridge. That's got to go in the pantry over there. Or I put those actually over the top of the stove. You got to sort all that stuff out in your relationship.
Right.
That's a part of the work.
Yep.
That's a part of the work of the relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So anyway, man, it's been a dope conversation, man. I'm going to make sure I put all Dana's information. If you, again, need to reach out to him for some tutoring or what have you, I'll make sure all the information is in the description. But anything in parting, man, you want to close the people out with, brother?
I think, man, first of all, I just want to once again give you kudos, man, for what you're doing in this platform. Number one, but I encourage the people listening to this, especially young people. I'll tell young people, if you don't have a testimony, don't try to go out there and create a testimony.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? If you ain't about that life, it's cool to not be about that life with certain things. But take the wisdom of brothers like ourselves and take notes and figure out how to apply those things to your life. Learning how to build effective communication, starting with your siblings, starting with your parents. So that way, by the time you get to your adult life, you're building relationships based off of authenticity. You know, so you got that strong foundation. And I think that when you have that strong foundation, then now when you have those how did I get here moments, it's more so on the positive side. And then ultimately, in everything that we do, the process is so important. The process. We often look at, I want to go to the league, or I want to do this, I want to do that. But social media, I think, has caused a lot of people to forget about the process. So I just encourage people, you know, in both of those aspects, man.
Yeah, indeed. And I think as you were talking about that, I always used to tell my kids at church, sometimes experience is overrated, depending on what it's in.
So enough.
It's overrated. I don't have to. So you said, well, you did that, and you had that kind of trouble or whatever happened. Okay, not going to do that. But sometimes, man, Brother Jay, I just wanted to, you know, see what it was like. You know, I'm like, you dummy. But but that's real.
Now you see what it's like.
Now you see, you know what I mean? So, again, man, I appreciate you, my brother. I salute you for what you're doing, man. And I plan on is several of you that I want to get on the line and just have some open dialogue just in general. And that's you, TJ, and another cat I met, again, military life. I met him in Germany, Kai Phoenix. He's been in the military. He's an author. You know, he a little low-key Black Panther. You know, he's, but just a dope brother. And one thing I was going to tell you, man, and we'll close it out here, though, but what I thought was key, what you were talking about, and Skeens and I, you know, we didn't meet our grandfather. You know what I mean? We maybe Skeens maybe saw a picture of him. Maybe he thinks. I never saw what he looked like, right? Just talking about from that aspect of it. And our friend Kai was talking about the reason that he writes so voraciously, as far as, you know, I know you have the same thoughts about the legacy that we leave for our children and those that come after. He's like, how dope is it that my son, my grandkids, and those that come after, they'll never have to guess or know, that I was thinking, they'll know that I was thinking about them even before they got here. And number two, I want to leave information for them so they won't have to guess about what I thought about things in life. They will know. You know what I'm saying?
Playbook.
They'll know.
Playbook.
This stuff right now, in this small way, is leaving the playbook for those that come after. That's what we doing.
I love it.
That's what we doing.
I love it, man.
So anyway, man, it's another episode of How Did We Get Here? I'm your host, Jay Carter, and the man that has always heard and never seen Skeens. In the background, a.k.a. the Wizard of Oz. We'll holler at y'all next time.